Are we on? Oh, we're live
Yeah.
now. Good afternoon. My name's Kevin Graham. Welcome to the Wednesday Bulletin. And today there's three of us on the Wednesday Club. It is me, John, and Paddy. Paddy, what have you done? Who have you annoyed to get put on a Wednesday?
Declan, Lawrence and Natasha, obviously. The three of them are sick of me.
Welcome to Axom, Siberia.
I've been exiled to the Wednesday Bulletin. I'll be moving my way through the week as the weeks go on. No pleasure to be on. Something different, different people. Glad to talk to you.
No problem. It's great to get your opinion on all things Celtic, Paddy, and that's what we're going to do. I've got a question first, and it's a World Cup related question. Paddy, John's already had prior knowledge to this, so I'll let me and John answer this first while you have a wee think about it. So the question, and I want the viewers, the commenters to answer this as well, as they like and subscribe. Now, who is the best Celt you've ever seen that has never played in a World Cup, even though his country has qualified? So, John, I'll go to you first because I ken that you had a wee bit of...
It was a good question, and I had to think about it, and I'm glad I'm not in Paddy's situation just now, trying to work out, because I had the benefit of Google, because I had to see it. My memory's terrible at the best of times. And I started thinking, would it be Lubo? And I didn't realise that when Lubo played, obviously, he played a lot, and he played for Czechoslovakia in the 90 World Cup finals. But I didn't realise he was sent off against Germany in the quarter-final in Milan, and Germany won 1-0. So, that was something I hadn't realised. So there you go. But no, the one that I came up with, there was only two that were straight in the top of my head, and the other one was Di Canio. So that was an easy one, because Di Canio never really made it at international level, and he was a tremendous player. Despite the fact he's a bit of a Nazi. He was a very decent player. So I would say probably Di Canio. I know some people here are going to be digging deep now. There's some people with really great memories in the comments, I'm sure, that are coming up with some crackers. But that was the two easy ones I thought straight away. And I was wrong about Lubo.
The one that I thought when I made up this question in my own mind was Chris Sutton. And the reason I picked Chris Sutton is because peak Sutton for me was 2000 to 2002. England went to the South Korea World Cup in 2002. And the forward options for that tournament, and I did have to Google this, were Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler, who was then at Leeds United, Teddy Sheringham and Darius Vassell. Surely Pete Chris Sutton could have got into that squad if Big Sutton hadn't fell out with English FA right enough. But when you look at the strikers that they actually took, Sutton at that time should have walked into that squad.
Oh, they made some appalling selection choices over the years, especially up front. I remember they were playing Heskey and boys like that as well at one point. I mean, Jesus.
I think Heskey was one as well. I think I stopped when I got to Vassell. I went, my point is proven when Darius Vassell is named in an England squad.
But I mean, they just couldn't seem to get it right. Selection has always been the biggest issue with them, getting it right selection-wise and trying to force square pegs into round holes. And, long may it continue.
Right, Paddy, you've had a wee bit of time now, mate.
I've only got 3 World Cups to choose from, and it's quite difficult. So,
dig. There's a dig.
No, a very big dig.
So, going back to 2014, this is a laugh because I don't think either of them really deserve to be in the squad. But I suppose Van Dijk and Chris Commons are the only two for 2014 that really stand out. 2018, if you can count him as a Celtic player, Dembele, probably for France. Maybe Sinclair with England, Scott Sinclair. Beyond that, you're really struggling. And then probably this year, Kyogo and Hatate. I'd probably say Hatate this year. Musa was good in 2018 though, so I think it's probably between those three. Atante, Kyogo and Dembele. Luckily, I've only got 3 to choose from. Obviously, going back to like 2002, 1998, you get a plethora of players to choose from that played for Celtic in that period. That just probably 2002, especially under Martin O'Neill, you've got so many good players that just maybe marginally missed out.
Gary Melrose comes in. Alan Thompson. Alan Thompson also got. I think he's the only Englishman to get a cap for England while playing for Celtic. Obviously, you need to be. I think you need to be English to get a cap to play for England, right enough, Kevin. Stop being so daft. But I do think he's got that title that he's the only guy ever to get a cap for England while playing for Celtic. I think Thompson 2004, the Euros in 2004, Thompson could have made a decent attempt to get into that squad. Also 2002 as well, But at that point, you've got Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes, who are still kicking about, But it's quite hangly. Maybe I did think about Alan Thompson actually when I was trying to. Brown Warrior comes in to actually remind us that Scotland weren't any of them. That's true. That's true. Brown Warrior. Sorry, mate, I'm not picking on you. Paddy McCourt. There you go. McCourt could have. No, wait a minute. When Paddy McCourt was playing for Celtic, Northern Ireland never got to any World Cup. So Drew,
I don't think so.
Drew turns it round. Jorginho is the best Celtic player I've seen at a World Cup that never played for Celtic.
The other way around.
We'll have a wee focus on the World Cup, Paddy. What we did, since me and John were quite lazy and we couldn't work out what we were going to talk about during this World Cup time, we went to that bastion of truth and honesty, which is Twitter. In light of going anywhere else, and we asked for some questions, so we're going to discuss them, but we'll go with the tagline first. After Cameron Carter-Vickers last night made his World Cup debut for the USA against Iran, and what was a tension-filled game rather than a free-flowing, entertaining game. So, Paul, this is Paul's question. So, as CCV excels on the world stage, is he our finest centre-half since Van Dijk? Paddy, over to you.
I think so. I think hands down he is. From what we've seen of him so far, what is it, a season and a third almost we've basically seen from him. I think it's a definite. When you consider the other centre-halves, you're probably looking at Denier, who played with Van Dijk. Maybe guys like Ayer, Julian for the 9 months that he played for Celtic was pretty good in my opinion, and then guys like Boyata as well. And I don't think any of them come near Carter-Vickers for me. Carter-Vickers, he does what Ayer used to do, sort of strides into midfield and gets the play going. He runs right through the opposition team to try and get the ball forward. He's just as physical, if not more, than Van Dijk. He scored a few headers. He's quite good in the air. So for me, he's an absolute unit. And I'm not saying he's better than Van Dijk, but he might be better for Celtic than Van Dijk was for Celtic, which is a big claim. I don't know if he'll go on to go be as good as Van Dijk, but he's been an absolute unit for us, and you can count in one hand the bad games he's had for Celtic.
It's interesting, John, this guy who was brung in only because Christopher Jullien was injured. And we've got to remember that if Jullien was back from injury when he was forecasted to be back from injury, Cameron Carter-Vickers might never have ended up on loan at Celtic. And that's some fault now,
Yeah, it just shows you sometimes things work out for the best. At the end of the day, I don't think there's much discussion about it, to be fair, other than to praise the man, because as far as is he our finest centre-half, I don't think there's much doubt about that. And you make an excellent point there, Paddy. The timing of it, yes, Van Dijk went on to be a really great player, but when he was playing with us, he was a very good player. And was he comparable to CCV? Is CCV, are we getting him at a better time in his career? So, that's a very interesting point. I hadn't really considered that one. But in terms of, I think he's excellent. And by all accounts, strolled that game the other night. Really stood out. USA versus Iran. So that was great to see, because I was starting to think he wasn't going to get a kick of the ball, which would have been desperately unfair. And I don't even know actually whether was it injury? Did he get in, or was he actually selected on merit? Do either of you guys know?
No idea.
No, 100%. They had been playing Zimmerman. No, me being a big Bob Dylan fan, I want us to sign Zimmerman just so we have like a Zimmerman and a Celtic side. But Zimmerman had played their last 2 games, and he came on with about 9 minutes to go in injury time.
So he's not injured then, but Nashville. And no disrespect to the MLS, but Nashville, that's who he plays for. Okay, I'm saying no disrespect to the MLS and following that up with absolute disrespect to the MLS. So, right, okay, apologies, just hold my hands up. Disrespect to the MLS. He can't possibly be at the same level as Carter-Vickers. He can't possibly have the same experience. I've no doubt he's a good player, but do me a favour. He's playing for Nashville.
A new signing comes from Nashville. He started at Nashville and went to Montreal.
Did he?
So you got to rewind there, John.
Because I actually think that I was looking at it this morning. Apparently, the fee is supposed to be around €4 million for Johnson, which I think, comparatively, and especially in light of recent signings, is actually quite expensive. JJ was €2.5 million, which is about €3.5 million. He's significantly more expensive than JJ, and he certainly didn't look to be any better than him. Based on what I saw the other night. That's pretty much the only game of this World Cup that I've watched, because it was Battle of the Right Backs. I wanted to see, who was going to come out on top in that. And obviously JJ got mugged within the first 2 minutes on the video that we've been watching all year. I heard people saying, he's played some great players with great pace and all the rest of it. You can forgive him for that. And the boy that he was up against had great, nothing to do with pace. Nothing to do with pace. He lost his man again, and the boy comes right over the top of him, clear header. So he get mugged straight off. However, they then goes on to create the second goal. I thought Johnson actually, in a couple of points, was very late with tackles, or too slow with tackles, and a couple of their goals came because, there was passes getting released and crosses getting released. That he should have had his foot on, in my opinion. So, I can see what his potential is. He's bigger. He looks more athletic. He looks more defensive straight away. And I think maybe that's just the way they were playing. But I think $4 million is quite a touch for that guy, to be honest with you. So I don't know if that's going to be the right figure or not. But what did you make of the two of them in that game? I don't know if you saw it.
The first thing I noticed about Johnson, Paddy, I think you'll probably maybe have picked up on this as well. Yared from Celtic Down Under says the next evolution of Angie's team will be this long diagonal ball that we haven't played an awful lot yet. And the first thing I saw Johnson doing was playing a long diagonal ball to Canada's best player, the boy that plays for Bayern, Alphonso Davies, who unfortunately for JJ was up against again. That seems to have happened. That seems to have happened to JJ in all his big rehearsal moments. All his big auditions. In the Champions League, he always seemed to be up against that team's best player. And he goes to the World Cup and he's up against Canada's best player as well. That was the first thing I noticed. The only other thing that I noticed about him was when he got booked in the first game for a rash challenge. But I'm going to trust Ange. If Ange seen enough of him. What I would say about the MLS, though, John, I think the MLS is actually improving because of the number of South American and Central American players that are actually going to the MLS now. I think the league has definitely improved. And I think if you have a look at the American national team, Paddy, as well, they're very athletic and very, very physical. And if the MLS is anything like that, these guys will get picked up by European sides quite easily.
Yeah, they've been really, really unfortunate, actually. I know they've went through with 5 points, but I think they could have won all 3 games, the USA. Mm-hmm. It was a tense game against Iran. They won 1-0. It was a tense game. I mean, all 3 were tense, but Wales were pretty chronic, and it was a penalty with 10 minutes to go that held them to a draw. England, there wasn't many clear-cut chances, but I'd definitely say the USA were the better team. England sort of settled for a draw as soon as the game kicked off, and then with about 20 minutes to go, I think the USA settled for a draw. So I think USA could have definitely got 9 points out of 9, which is absolutely incredible. And when you look at their team, you've got guys like McKennie, who I think is at Juventus, Pulisic for Chelsea, Carter-Vickers, obviously. There's a lot of quality players there. The goalkeeper, I thought, looked really good. He's
Thibaut.
Aye, he's the one that scored against Wales, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. And then the keeper, I think, looks really good as well for Arsenal. I said on Twitter, I think we should sign him if it's at all possible, because he's 28 and he isn't getting a game. But great team. And I forgot what your question is now. What did you ask me?
The improving quality of the MLS, because as underwater cabbage salesman, the MLS have signed the top South American youth targets over the last few seasons. That's one of the things that seems to be less and less. There seems to be players that are now going from Central America and South America to the MLS, then making the move to actual Europe. So the league seems to be improving in quality. Not that I watch any of it, truthfully, but I just need to go with what these brainy guys at the Athletic say to me for £1 a month.
Yeah, no, just to be clear, Kev, I was talking from a position of absolute ignorance. So, I know nothing about it. But I just thought I'd disparage it anyway.
Don't we all, John? Don't we all? The thing about Johnson, Paddy, is he's 3 inches bigger than Juranovic. And we're talking as if Juranovic is definitely out the door. This could just be a wee bit of forward planning for Celtic, knowing full well that Juranovic is going to go at one point, maybe not in this window or the summer. But he's a big, tall. He'll be the tallest fullback that we have at the club, and that's one thing that we've always spoke about, that we're very small in certain areas, and he's 5'11", so. That adds that. He looks tall, he looks athletic, he likes a challenge. It'd be interesting. I would like to know how we managed to scout him, how he came onto Celtic's radar. I'm always interested in these sort of left field things, and I wonder if this is a Mark Wall production.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. It really has come out of left field, because obviously, when you're going to sign a footballer, you don't think of Canada as the country of choice, but obviously when you see guys like Alphonso Davies, and then, as you're saying, the MLS, it's an improving region, it's an improving league. I think he's only 24, I think I'm right in saying that, only 24. As you're saying there about the diagonal balls, that's obviously something that Andrew's looking at. Maybe that's how we came across him. He told Mark Lawwell to look for a fullback that can play a game like that, and that's how we've came across him. And then sort of validating all his other attributes. Can he defend? Can he go forward with pace? Can he put in a good cross and a good cutback? And then, as you say, Juranovic isn't out the door yet. There's all these rumours. There's rumours in the summer of Leicester for 15 or 20 million. There's rumours now of 11 or 12 million that he's definitely going to go, or he's going to go in the summer. I think it'd be interesting to see us having 3 first choice right backs and right back, because Ralston's, in my opinion, has been better than Juranovic this season. Juranovic, obviously, we've paid money from. He's getting linked to different teams. He probably is the first choice right back, if you're being honest. And then you bring in a guy for €4 million. As John said, that's a lot of money. So if we're forward planning, that's a bit of a headache for the rest of the season. I know we've got maybe 35 games or so, but it's a lot of juggling. And as you say, so on you go.
Is it a headache for the rest of the season? Because it seems to be that what Ange Postecoglou likes to do is bed guys in. So when somebody comes into a club, he's there to get bedded in. He's there to get used to the training, the way Ange wants to play, and he doesn't really get chucked in unless really, really needed. Like last season, Starfelt, Kyogo, and that got thrown right in because there was nothing else there. But you look at Abelgard and you look at his comments on Haskabanovic. They've said when he says about Haskabanovic that he's played more often than he would have liked.
Yeah,
just because it's time to get bedded in. So maybe having those three there, that Johnson's not going to be really quoted as
But I think that was a different situation, Kev. I mean, Haksabanovic and Abelgard, I mean, they hadn't been playing, so he didn't want to throw them in, obviously, because they hadn't been playing. I mean, this boy's going to be fresh off a World Cup, his first choice for his country. So we'll have two guys who are first choice for their country and one guy who should be first choice for his country. I don't think I think it is definitely would be a headache. Very different from the Kobayashi situation, when you're coming in, he's a young fella, he's not really blooded at this level, he's got no experience to speak of, he's going to have to be bedded in slowly, and we try and assess his quality and where he fits in the pecking order. But I definitely look. It might well be forward planning, but I'm not sure if they were thinking there was going to be a definite offer for JJ in this window. I suspect there might be. I see that as potentially too much forward planning now, unless the boy's out of contract. I don't know what the situation is at his club. Unless he's out of contract shortly. Unless they thought someone would come in and get him after the World Cup, unless they're just, getting the business done to make sure they don't lose the boy, because they're certain that JJ will definitely go in the summer, and they're just willing to wear his wages for the next, few months. But they're definitely all excellent choices, and that would be a hell of a battle. That's going to be. Talk about tense situations. That's going to be a bit tense if the three of them are. Trying to find a way. Ange might be rotating through three fullbacks in a game.
Paddy, I found it really interesting that he spoke to Juranovic after the game. I found that really quite, and he admitted speaking to Juranovic after the game. I found that really quite. It's part of football that we didn't usually see. That maybe he's a wee bit naive because he couldn't hold his water when the question was asked in the press conference. Then he admits that he was speaking to Josip Juranovic after the game about Celtic. He seems excited anyway to be coming to the club.
Aye, it does. I mean, as you say, couldn't hold his water. He was brimming with joy as soon as the reporter asked, and he couldn't stop giggling. And he had his family message him and all that. So I think from his perspective, he's just wanting the move to go through. Probably he's not thinking about, is this guy that I'm talking to going to be leaving? Is me coming in going to force this guy out? All that sort of stuff. He's probably asking him, going, is this a good club? Is this a good manager? What's the culture like? Are we going to win things? How's the season going?
Where do you get decent kebabs?
Aye, so I mean, he'll be. I think it'll be purely selfish reasons he's doing that, and then obviously, he's a bit forthright in the press, I suppose, coming out and revealing that to everyone. But it's interesting. It certainly looks as if he's going to come in. Whether Jovanovic leaves this window, leaves the next summer, or it's some sort of big shock and Jovanovic ends up leaving or something. I think it looks like Johnson's definitely going to be in the door come January, and it's a good point. You're absolutely spot on about bedding people in. Abelgard still hasn't been bedded in. Giakoumakis never really got a look in until January. He sort of missed that penalty in Livingston at home, and that was a real setback. But then, as you say, there's other ones, Starfelt, Kyogo, Abada, absolutely thrown in. So it does like to bed players in.
On that point, just about the Abelgard point, I know we've sort of discussed this before, but I mean, you saw Haksabanovic coming in because, we really needed someone in that position, and he did a tremendous job. He's obviously a very, very talented player, but given the state of the midfield and that we lost McGregor, and given how little we've seen of Abelgard, do you think he's definitely got a future at the club?
No, I don't think he's got a future at the club. I didn't think we'd actually be able to afford to sign him. I thought this was some sort of top quality European player that we were getting, and it's ended up being, he's a bit slow, he's unfit, he's quite tall, he's a bit wayward with his passing, he can't get in the team. I mean, you thought when McGregor went off in Leipzig, I mean, I was actually in the stadium going, brilliant, Abelgard's going to get a run here, we're finally going to see what he's about. And we haven't. We've had to move O'Reilly back, and we've had to sort of mix it up with the 2 10s that we play, or the 2 8s or whatever it is. So, no, he would have to have some second half of this season for us to sign him, I think, Abelgard.
I'll disagree with Beffies. I think he has got a future at Celtic. I think he's the type of player. I think he's the type of profile player that we actually needed in the summer. It just so happens that he hasn't been fit, mainly because he was training himself, didn't have a pre-season. He's came into a highly intensive environment, and one where Celtic have played a hell of a lot of games, and there's been turnover and there hasn't been much time for him to actually bed in. He didn't look good against Sydney a couple of weeks ago, but then I didn't judge players when they're playing alongside other fringe players, because it's just, when you put him, if you put him in a midfield alongside Hatate and O'Reilly and he still looked honking, then you would go, well, maybe we've got a wee bit of a problem here.
We've seen him do that though, Kev. And also, I just go back to the point about Haksabanovic, who came from the same club. So basically, same fitness issues, same bedding in issues, and he's been a star player.
Everybody's different though, John. Everybody's got a different body. Everybody's got a different, I remember Gary Caldwell telling me about Scott Brun. He says Scott Brun was a phenomenon. He says he could go away for pre-season, he could go away at the end of the season, come back for pre-season fitter than what he was at the end of the season, and he hadn't done nothing during the summer. It was just some folks' bodies are just not naturally like. I'm
like that, mate. Yeah, I know, totally understand.
I'm just going to leave that there. You've actually got me stuck for words. There's so many things I want to say, but we'll get taken off there. Can't I say it? Brown Warrior, I'm not going to. I kind of keep on going back to Brown Warrior, but this was a question that was chucked at us on Twitter as well. Kev, do you think Johnson is an upgrade on Juranovic? Sat on 30 million cash at the bank. Why we not signing him and keeping Juranovic until the summer? Well, we've answered the second part of that question. Yeah. Is he an upgrade on paper? No. And I'm saying that but football is not paid on paper. If you're looking at the facts of the matter, Paddy, the thing is, we're possibly signing him to replace the first choice fullback for a club, for a country who got to the final of the semi-finals of the Euros, and they'll probably go quite the semi-finals of the Euros, the final of the last World Cup, and could probably go quite deep into this World Cup.
Can I pose that question in a slightly different way, because we have covered that, right? So the question someone pointed out there the other day. We're comparing him and Juranovic, we're comparing him and Ralston. But if we are looking to improve in Europe, if we are looking to move forward, if we are looking to upgrade, the one thing we're fairly certain of is if he's an upgrade at all, it is marginal at best. So is he the kind of guy that we thought would be signing if we were looking to do better in Europe next year? Let's put it that way. In terms of, is he slightly better than JJ or slightly worse? He's probably, as I say, it's very marginal. But was JJ good enough? Because he wasn't this year. And Ange didn't think Ralston was good enough. So we've signed a guy who's basically exactly the same. So how does that help us going forward?
I'm going to go back to your Tony Ralston thing there. Ralston was given a contract because he was on the right back in the club. And he bought into Ange Postecoglou. He bought massively into Ange Postecoglou. And I'm unfortunate enough to know a couple of Dundee United fans and a couple of St Johnstone fans. And they can't actually believe it's the same player. They cannot believe it's the same player that was at their clubs. So Tony Ralston, I think, is an anomaly in this whole conversation. I'm going to agree with you, John, for once. I do not, on paper, it doesn't look like Johnson is what we need to make that step in Europe. But it would if we wanted to make that step in Europe, we would probably try to keep Josip Juranovic, who might go for 10, 15 million pounds. So we need to try and bring in a player to develop to be that level in Europe. And this is where we're always going to go round in ever the decreasing circles, Paddy, because we're not going to sell Josip Juranovic for, say, £15 million. I don't know if we'll get 15 million, but we're not going to sell Josip Juranovic for £15 million and spend £10 million on another right back, because we can't afford a £10 million right back's wages. And this is where this constantly upgrading model for Celtic falls down because of where we are, Paddy. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be totally honest. I have seen 20 minutes of Johnston, so I am very much not the best person to judge him right now. But I mean,
he's absolutely brilliant, Paddy. Absolutely amazing. He's going to run riot. He's going to run riot.
He'll be challenging Cancelo at Man City for the best right back in the bloody world. No, so, I mean, from what I gather, he seems to be of the same level as Juranovic from what you two are talking about. I don't know if is that a fair summation? From what I've heard, he seems to be
I'm going to say that Juranovic has got more experience, which would make him the better player. It would make him the better player.
From a financial point of view, if we spent 2.5 and say we bring in 12, you then get 9.5 profit, and then you're spending 4 on a new guy and then banking 5. So from a financial perspective, you're definitely making an upgrade because you've got more money and you've replaced him with a guy who's the exact same. In terms of age, I think Juranovic is 27, Johnson's 24, and you've got time.
That's exactly the comment I was going to pick up.
Yeah, Juranovic is maybe a year to become a better player. Then he becomes 28, 29, and with age, with your body, you begin to drop off. Johnson, 24. Not a lot of room for improvement, but still got a few years ahead of him where he can become a better player. I think working with a better manager, arguably in a better league, he can become a better player. Certainly, you'd like to think he'll be playing Champions League football next season. And then, when it comes to the Champions League, we'll need him for the Champions League on the 7th of September. It's currently the 30th of November. So you're talking 9-10 months. For us to develop him, to get him ready, to bed him in and try and make him a better player by the time we get to the competition in which we want to progress as a football club. Because the reality is, if we were to stick with Ralston for the 35 games or so we've got left this season, I don't think it makes a massive impact on our squad. I think if we go into the Champions League with Ralston next season, I think it makes an impact. If we go in with Juranovic or Johnson, I think it changes it somewhat. As you said, Juranovic has come up against Mudryk, Vinicius Junior and Alphonso Davies in the past couple of months, and he's struggled. So hopefully with a more favourable draw and a more well-rounded team, we can progress. And from an age and from a financial perspective, I think Johnston offers that.
I think so as well, John. I think you've got 3 years potential there before players reach their peak. Similar players reach their peak at 27. So Johnson's now making the step up to work with a guy who's proved himself great at developing players, and that goes all the way back to his time at Brisbane Roar, when he brought in a couple of unknown journeymen who became the best players ever to play in the A-League. Well seen, I watched Celts down under this morning, eh? Yeah. I'll give them a wee nod there for that. So there is development there, but I think the major plus point of the Johnson signing is his age. The fact that he's younger than Juranovic, but the minus point is it looks like this other sell high, buy low. If you know what I mean, experience-wise, that's what it looks like from an intellectual outsider who doesn't know how these things work.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's as Paddy was saying there, obviously financially it makes a load of sense because, look, at the end of the day, if we end up with a guy who's the same quality and we've just banked £5 million, then that's what the player trading model is all about. And as you pointed out, Kevin, we've had a discussion before, you can't reset to zero every time you sell a player. You don't want to be buying someone who is, like £1.5 million, and he's a total punt and all the rest of it, once you've sold someone for 12 or 15 million. But there is a limit, there is an upper limit for us because we can't afford those wages. So, this is actually a decent sized punt for us because 4 million, a guy who's 24, but that's the kind of model that we're looking at because, that is potential then. So we have to develop that. We're never going to be able to say, let's say he comes on, in the next couple of years, turns into an absolutely cracking player, first choice cracking player. We sell him for another 15 million quid. We were never going to be able to buy a 15 million pound player, So it's fairly straightforward in terms of this model. We have to buy potential, and the risk has always been for us that that we've tried to buy potential at the bargain basement level.
Aye.
But we need to be buying potential mid-level. That's where we need to be. Someone who has potential to be better, but he's not, the Canadian third choice. Do you know what I mean? He's someone who has a better level of potential, who can go more places. We can see more growth from him. And that's where we need to be. We don't really have any choice because that's not going to change. So I'm, from the point of view as I said, is he the kind of signing we'd expect to see if we're going to challenge in Europe next year? No, because he's another guy with potential, and so it's not an automatic upgrade, but it's the only way that we can function because we have to make money, we have to be profitable. I mean, we made 30 million last year in player sales. It was a record year. And it wasn't exactly a bumper profit, so that money's going to have to come from somewhere. So, we bank 5 million, we get a guy who's just the same. Michael Nicholson will be overjoyed, and that puts him in, that's put Ange in his good books. So he's more likely to pull the trigger on other things that Ange wants. But that's it. We need to be buying potential at as high a level as possible. And the choices are, as the stats guys will tell you, you can go and buy some phenom 18-year-old, as all the other big English clubs do, and you can spend 20 million on buying some 18-year-old, as done all around Europe with the bigger clubs. We are never going to be there, so we can't get that guy. So our potential has to be on a slightly different gradient, and your national team's first choice right back in a World Cup's a fairly good start. So I'd say we're on the right path.
I think we are on the right path, Paddy. I think if you look at the ultimate disaster that has been Celtic in Europe over the last 10 years, and we have been an ultimate disaster over Europe in the last 10 years, and I think the board have sold us short, and I think the thinking of the board has sold us short, and the level one I always put up with this is, can you name the side that we signed Patrick Kamala for?
I can't, no.
Can you name the sign that we signed Bio from?
No, I couldn't even name the country, actually.
See, that's the problem that this board actually had, that they've been trying to pick up these guys from second division Belgian mobs.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work. It isn't going to work. And I understand why there's some people feel that the board rough changes, but the model always is. The Swiss Ramble had the perfect thing. That our model is, we bring players in and we sell them on. We offer them that platform, and that is an unfortunate thing that of playing in Scotland, Paddy. It is always going to be a stepping stone to somewhere else, unless the European borders suddenly change. But my biggest bugbear with the board has been signing your Bios and your Kamalas for mobs that we've never heard of. We have to up that level, and this is where I feel down. This is where I feel shortchanged in Europe. Definitely, that we've never done that. We've always trying to be polishing turds that always have been turds, and we should be sacking the scouts that actually like.
So how do you think that's going to be affected, Kev, by Mr. Lowell potentially coming back as chairman? That was one of the questions that was asked on Twitter. Is that going to, the changes that have been made, the different approach from Michael Nicholson, is he going to have to back down, and get back under his rock, basically, as Mr. Lowell takes charge again and starts implementing Lowell ball?
I'll go back to what I was saying there, Paddy, then we'll come to the spectre of Peter Lawwell, which is hanging over the club. I mean, when you compare the Johnson signing to Kamala and Bio, I keep on going back to the two, and there's numerous others. Skepovic, we can go. There's loads of them, and Miku, even though he played against Barcelona. There's loads of them, absolutely loads of them. Lassad, I'm going. Oh, they're all coming flooding back to me now. I'm having PTSD flashbacks here. There's loads of them. Signing Canada's first choice right back, who's playing at a World Cup, who's also made steady progression in a league which is becoming tougher and tougher as it goes on. Doesn't sound like it's a massive. It doesn't sound like we've reset it to zero, does it?
No. You know, the €4 million price tag is probably the only thing that makes it sound like a bit of a gamble. You know, if you're signing this guy for $1 million, you think, you know, that's a bit of a steal here. You know, he might be a bit of a failure, but at $1 million, it's not that bad. At $4 million, with Jovanovic going, it then becomes a gamble, because you've then spent $4 million on a guy, and you're probably looking to bring in someone else in the summer if he becomes a failure. So only really then does it become a gamble. You know, touching on your point there, you know, just to remind you of a few more, you've got, you know, guys like Pukki, who he went on to be a success in the Premier League for one season for Norwich. Dirk Boerichter, that was a personal favourite of mine. Phenomenal footballer, just phenomenal. Amido Balde, that's another one. The 2013
Bangura.
The 2013 transfer window. Oh my god! I mean, we sold Tupper, we sold McCourt, we sold a few players in 2013 and replaced them with absolute dross. And only really because there was no challenge, and we had Chris Commons scoring for fun, did we run away with the league by about 31 points or something. But you've got a certain faith, maybe not so much with the entire board, but you know, Nicholson, we've been relatively successful, and we've sort of been progressing ever since Nicholson took charge. You've got complete faith in Ange and everything he does, really, or at least I do. You know, I think all the signings, all the sort of big signings that definitely has his stamp on them have been a success. You know, Abelgard, maybe there's a question, but you know, guys like McCarthy who haven't really contributed, definitely not an Ange signing. Osaze and Liam Shaw. You know, Shaw, not so much Ange signings, hence why they've not really played. I feel as if it's a less of a gamble. You know, with Rodgers, you felt that sort of safety and security, and you felt as if you're definitely going to win things and win games. But when it came to transfers, he was still very hit and miss. I think that was down to Congerton and people like that. But with Ange, it seems to be an 80-90% success rate. But you know, if what John's talking about, you know, the spectre of Peter Lawwell casts a shadow over the club again, it might be all changed. Hopefully not, because I think chairman it's a largely sort of ceremonial position where you don't really wield much influence anymore, but we shall see.
Ian Laurie, you can't say that scouting hasn't uncovered decent players. Read your strapline. That is true, but what I would say that our scouting's probably changed since Ange Postecoglou has been there, whereas under Lawwell, which I've just read that David Sees just actually says that we seem to be using the same agents all the time. There didn't seem to be much. I was like throwing a hedgehog at a dartboard, knowing that you're going to hit a treble 20 if you threw it somewhere roughly at the top of the board, and it's something that needs to be put in place. There has to be and hopefully Matt Wall can actually bring that into place after his dalliance at the Sheik's club, which is Man City. Right, we've brought up Wall, so Peter and back, so I suppose we're going to need to talk to him. The question was, if I'm actually going to find the question on Twitter,
Well, the question was basically...
if Peter Law is for Rebel86 on Twitter, if Peter Law was appointed CEO in January, will Axom Media criticise the decision in the press conferences in spite of potential cessation of media access? That comes for a question with somebody that will never get media access. So it's very difficult for somebody to actually answer. But what I would probably say to it, before John comes in, I ken he's dying to come in. I ken John's dying to come in. What I would probably say to you, if Peter Law is announced as Celtic chairman, there will be no fan media in the conference. I think I can safely say that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing is, can I just thank all the people on Twitter that I asked to contribute, and they did, and we got a load of very good questions, which we'll be able to use over the next couple of weeks while there's nothing on. So if we don't get to them today, we'll get to them in the next couple of weeks. So thanks very much for that, guys. The Lowell one, in terms of the media access, that's for me and you, Kev, that's not a problem. We're quite happy to sit here and torpedo Axom's chances of media access, by saying whatever the hell we want. In terms of Lowell, chairman is not actually a ceremonial position. So the CEO reports to the chairman. So the chairman and the board. So he has significant power and significant power over the CEO. However, the CEO is day-to-day running. The CEO is a man who's, he's ultimately responsible to them. But I was thinking about incentivization. So Mr. Lowell's package before as CEO was based on, his bonus was based on how much money basically we had in the bank and the level of profits at the end of the year. So he was incentivized not to be going out spending money or taking any risks. As chairman, I don't think it matters. Michael Nicholson also strikes me as the kind of man, he's very friendly with Mr. Lowell, that's for sure. But he is... also strikes me as the kind of man, especially now that he's got his feet under the table, that will be his own man and go about things in his own way, and he has done so far. I don't think it's a good thing that we have directors and non-executive directors who are just a boys' club. That's not what they're supposed to be there for. We're supposed to have new voices, especially the non-exec directors who are supposed to be independent new voices, and to have guys in there for like 10 years or more completely undermines what a corporate structure is, a good corporate structure is supposed to do. So I completely oppose the way that the board is run as far as that goes. But with Mr. Nicholson in there basically accommodating Ange, then that seems to be the way forward. And the reason we had, the issues before under Lowell was because we had no football department. It was the manager and that was it. So, the guys that we had in for recruitment were brought in, guys like Congerton, who was a clown, knew as much about the football market as I do. Do you know what I mean?
He keeps on getting employed, though, John.
Yeah, I know.
He keeps on getting employed.
Watch the telly and pick people from England and then get a couple of agents on the phone. Cushiest number in the world. Knows absolutely nothing. What we've got now is a guy in young Lowell, who knows what he's about. Now, I was trying to find out what the actual corporate structure is the other day, and I came across it. I didn't take a note of it, but we actually have appointed at least one scout that I wasn't really aware of, with a fair degree of experience, Portuguese guy, as far as I remember. So there are, as we discussed before, we must have a structure in place that postdates Ange. We have to have something there, whether, with the chief executive has to appoint a manager who has a similar vision, because we're building a football team around that sort of vision. And we have to have a football department to back that up, so that the chief executive never again is a man who is trying to make football decisions about football players, about which he knows absolutely nothing. Again, I'm hoping it's not a backward step, but that entire board structure is wrong, and needs to be. Those people need to be rooted out and gone, and we need to have new execs. We shouldn't have a chairman coming back in that position. Will it make any difference? I don't know, but it's not right. It's not the right thing to do. So in my opinion, he shouldn't be coming back. If we want a club to take us into, the future, we need different voices. We need a different vision. And again, look, we talk about it all day, quite happily do that, but I'm not sure Mr. Lowell coming back is going to make that big a difference at this point, although he should not be coming back. And the other directors, especially the non-execs, should be out.
I think the Celtic boardroom smells of a mouldy cupboard. It does. It needs completely revamped. But I see people in the comments, and there's one thing that we need to talk about. They say, well, since Dermot Desmond basically took over the club when he ousted Alan McDonald, it was Alan McDonald, Alan McDonald and all of that in 2001, was it? I can't remember. Anyway, we've been ultimately successful domestically. I would counter that point, Paddy. We were saying we were always told that we were a Champions League club, and we've never ever been that in the last 10 years. We had a bit of success under like Neil Lennon, Gordon Strachan, Martin O'Neill, but we've never actually really made a dent in the Champions League the way that we should have done, the way that we want. And I think that's a massive, massive failure. And it was down to the way that the club was run. What I'm going to say is I don't think Peter Lawwell's ever went away. I think he had a massive hand in Ange Postecoglou walking through that door. And I think if he came back as chairman, I don't want him back as chairman because of what's happened previously. And anybody that was around the club when we lost 10 in a row, they're a toxic brand now. And that's the bottom line. I understand why Dermot Desmond would want to see Peter Lawwell as chairman of the club. Because of the influence that he does have on numerous boards all over Europe. But let's be frank about this. Ian Bankier hasn't been a chairman. Peter Lawwell was the de facto chairman when he was the CEO. Because every time you look at every other club, when they want a statement, it's the chairman that comes out. When it was us, it was a CEO that went out and actually made the statement. And this is why folk were shouting about, we never hear from Michael Nicholson. No, you should never hear from your CEO anyway. You should never hear from your CEO. It should be the chairman that you're actually hearing from. Do I want Lowell back as chairman? No. Do I think that he's went away? No. That's shortened what I was trying to say there.
No, I totally agree. I think you're right. He had a massive hand in Ange coming to the club. There's all these sort of conflicts that are really quite intertwined because obviously, it is a bit of a boys' club. You see, oh God, who's the boy with the green coat? Oh no, board member. Totally gone out of my head. Big Tory donor. God, that's terrible.
That's all of them.
3%. He owns about 3%.
What's
God, I
Tory?
can't find his name.
Tory Peter.
Obviously, Ian and Peter are no doubt pals. Peter and Dermot are no doubt pals. And then, we announced Mark Lawwell over the summer to start in August or whatever it was. And, on the face of it, a guy...
Sorry, Paddy, to interrupt. We've never heard from Mark Lawwell.
No, he's never said anything, never done a conference. That's what I meant to say, actually. If Lawwell was to replace Bankier as chairman, I'm not sure there would even be a press conference. I don't know if Celtic would facilitate something like that, because obviously, the mainstream media are sort of going to ask the typical boring questions, the vision you have for the club, who's really in charge and all that. But then with fan media, obviously, as you say, it would pose a bit of an issue because people would be asking about 10 in a row, about Neil Lennon, and then you're just being dragged back 2 years when you're actually 9 points clear in the league and you've just banked 35 million for Europe, or 29 or whatever it was. And then you think to yourself, should the chairman really have the son running the football department? And then you think to yourself, well, actually, this guy who we have as chairman, he's really well experienced. He knows the club, he knows Scottish football, he's got a lot of connections. And then the guy running the football department is also really experienced and well thought of, especially in Man City. So on merit, they both deserve to be there. But the fact that they're father and son, it's all these sort of, I don't know what you call it, sort of contradictions.
Nepotism.
Well, that's the thing, though. It might be nepotism, but at the same time, it works, and it's hard to say whether it is actually on merit or whether it's nepotism, because they're both pretty well qualified, but they're father and son, and they've been around the club for 20 years. So it's,
but both of those things aren't mutually exclusive. It can be both of those things.
Aye.
So, and I'd say it is both of those things.
If Mark Laurel's surname was Smith, we would be raving about him.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. That's
one of the reasons, Kev. That's one of the reasons why he's kept his head down. You know what I mean? Because the name is toxic, and it's starting to wear off a bit now. But certainly for the last year, you know, anyone called Lowell was getting short shrift, weren't they? So you know, after the 10 season, so it's calming down a bit now. But I imagine that's why he's kept his head down. You know, but I mean, look. I hope he is good at his job, but it is a problem, the fact that his dad is, you know, so connected at the club and is potentially the next chairman, because the manager has to be able to trust him, right? So if the manager's talking at the head of the football department, I'm sure he wants to be able to trust that man to work with him closely and not necessarily report every single word he says back to the chairman.
Postecoglou worked with Mark Law at Yokohama. That's how he knows him. So there is a circle here. There is connections all the way, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Peter Law return to Celtic as chairman the way that we've worked. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And if that announcement came, I'd be like, wow. But I wouldn't be surprised, because it's the way that we seem to have done business. And I do reckon that Dermot Desmond's recent utterance over the last 6 months has been paving that pathway. I've just spoken has been paving that pathway for Peter Law to walk up the Celtic way as chairman. I do believe that, but I also do believe that he's never actually went away either. The Urban Coolshay, Axel won't give media access to the hard left. There was a question put on our WhatsApp group, Urban, and it was when Ange Postecoglou came across, and it says, who wants to go to the press conference and what question would you ask? And I ruled myself out right away by saying, I would want to ask him the question, who would win a fight between a wallaby and a badger? That's what I want to know. And so I would never get near any of the press conferences anyway. I would also ask him what his favourite INXS album is as well, because that's the type of things I want to know. I'm not interested in who's playing left back. I want to know stuff like that. Other questions. Let's go for another topical one, and I can't find it just now. Somebody was actually saying, why can't we go back to Umbro? Richard McGinley, who writes the Etam's Diary, why can't we go back to Umbro? Kits have been poor quality since Adidas have took over. I completely disagree. I remember buying an Umbro kit John Barnes' season that fell apart. I think the Adidas stuff looks actually all right. It's the best. It's a far better than New Balance. And I think Umbro are actually owned by Adidas now anyway. Or they're owned by somebody, the umbrella company. I think that's just a Celtic da thing. That they want Umbro back.
Definitely a Celtic da thing. Can I just say, fighting the corner for men of a certain size, Adidas have very generous sizing. So, you know, some of these Nike and New Balance and all the rest of it, you know, that was a bit of a struggle. So I'm glad I can still wear some of the kit as it stands. So I'm all for maintaining the relationship with Adidas. Definitely not interested in getting Umbro back in the game. They also just we had some awful kits, did we not? I mean, Paul John's obviously the man to talk about. He's got the thing. I just remember some awful kits with Umbro in them, especially some of the away ones. But no expert in that. But no, I think Adidas is definitely and the quality of the game. You know, I'm happy enough with that. I mean, this on here. I mean, that's an actual badge. That's not some stick-on thing. So that's embroidered. So, you know, that's decent quality, because most of the stuff now is just stick on and it starts coming off as soon as you've washed it a couple of times. You know,
Paddy,
so I'm happy enough where we are.
Paddy, I was over the moon that they brought out an Adidas Classic range. That was what I was waiting on. I was waiting on the trefoil badge, and then I was going to go into the Adidas thing with you being a young lad, as you already says right at the start of this bulletin. What's your thoughts?
I quite liked Adidas. Just to reiterate there, I don't remember Umbro. I'm far too young, but I barely remember Nike. No, it's just been New Balance and Adidas for me, mainly New Balance. But I wasn't that big a fan of the New Balance stuff, to be honest. I'm quite a big fan of is it the 2 or the 3 Adidas ones? I think it's 3 we've had Adidas. 3 years. So wasn't that big a fan of last year's top, but obviously when you win a league and you have a successful season, you look at it more fondly. I quite like this season's top. I quite like the top that we played the lockdown season with, although I can't look at it without having PTSD, like you said. I mean, I just get flashbacks to like nothing each straws with Livingston in January and all that, and oh my god!
I noticed when I was in Livingston Shoreham the other week there, and I noticed it was in JD's for like I think it was £12, and I still couldn't even force myself to buy the Wayne. I went, no, I'm still not buying that top. That top's like
that's cursed, totally cursed. I'll go with Adidas. Umbro do some nice stuff, right enough. So maybe it'd be better nowadays, but quite happy with Adidas until whenever the contract runs out, 2025 or whatever.
Yeah. Aye, right. That's us. An hour and 1 minute. Thanks for all the likes. If you haven't liked, please like. Rory McDonald does bring up a very decent point. You don't buy strips, Kev. No, I didn't, but I look at them every day in my life. So I have to have a comment on them because I see them all the time. And my Wayne's they actually wear them as well. So I do have a interest in these type of things. Paddy, John, it's been absolutely brilliant. Have you on? We hardly answered any of the questions, so that leaves us more for next week. And the infamous bus question has to get asked next week because there's been a couple of people in the comments asking when he's discussing the bus. So we'll discuss that next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and remember, dinna be bams to each other. Hail, hail.